They kick in the wrong door at the wrong time. Wood splinters across hardwood floor. 3 officers storm through the wreckage. Flashlights cutting through darkness like swords. The lead detective's boot crunches broken doorframe. His sergeant follows, hand on weapon. Behind them, their captain surveys the destruction. The woman bolts upright in bed, sheets tangled around her legs. Harsh light blinds her momentarily. She's wearing nothing but underwear and a tank top. Hands where we can see them. The detective barks. She raises her hands slowly, her eyes adjust to the chaos. Furniture overturned, drawers yanked open, papers scattered everywhere. Then the detective's flashlight beam freezes. On the bedroom wall hangs a navy blue jacket. Gold letters spell FBI across the back. The light holds steady for 3 seconds. The detective's radio crackles. The sergeant's breathing changes. Something shifts in the room's energy. The jacket hangs there like a silent witness, but they don't stop. They can't stop now. The silence that follows is thick, but brief. The lead detective clears his throat like he's shaking off a bad thought. "Search the room," he snaps, louder than necessary. The moment passes, or at least, they pretend it does. The woman doesn't scream. She doesn't beg. She doesn't ask why 3 armed men just shattered her front door at 2 a.m. Instead, she sits straighter on the mattress, back rigid, eyes sharp now that the shock has worn off. She's watching them, not with fear, but with calculation. The sergeant yanks open her dresser, clothes spilling onto the floor. The captain stays near the doorway, arms folded, scanning the room like he's already planning the report. The detective circles closer to the bed, flashlight sweeping across nightstand items, keys, a wallet, a charging phone. The phone keeps charging. Quiet. Unassuming. 15 years of federal cases sit locked inside it. "Noise complaint," the detective mutters, as if saying it enough times might make it true. The woman finally speaks. A noise complaint doesn't justify forced entry. Her voice is calm, controlled, almost professional. The sergeant pauses mid-search. "You a lawyer now?" he scoffs. She meets his eyes. "I'm someone who knows the Fourth Amendment." The captain shifts his weight. They don't notice the small black device tucked into the lamp on her nightstand. Its red indicator, glowing faintly. Recording everything. The door exploding. The orders barked. The way the detective's hand lingers too long inside her purse. He pulls out a small plastic bag. White powder catches the beam of his flashlight. "Well, look at that," he says, voice falsely satisfied. The woman exhales slowly. "That wasn't there before." The detective smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. "You sure about that?" She doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. Instead, she memorizes badge numbers, watches hands, notes the exact second the captain looks away. Because panic would be useless. Evidence, on the other hand, is everything. They think this night belongs to them. They think they're writing her story. They have no idea this moment is being archived, frame by frame, by someone who's spent her entire career waiting for men like them to make a mistake this big. And the biggest one? They still haven't looked closely enough at that jacket on the wall, because the longer they keep searching, the closer they get to discovering that the woman sitting calmly on that bed isn't their suspect. She's their worst possible problem. The detective snaps on a pair of gloves, stretching them slowly, deliberately, like he's settling into something familiar. "Ma'am," he says, "you want to explain why we got reports of drug activity coming from this address?" She studies his face, not answering right away. There's a rhythm to moments like this. She knows it. Silence unsettles people who expect fear. "Who reported it?" she finally asks. The sergeant laughs. "That's not how this works." "Actually," she replies evenly, "it is. Anonymous tips don't justify warrantless entry, especially not forced entry." The captain steps forward now, voice smooth, practiced. "We received multiple complaints, enough to investigate." "Investigate," she repeats, "not tear apart a private residence." Her gaze drifts, intentionally, to the doorway, to the shattered frame, to the splintered wood still scattered like evidence begging to be photographed. The detective bristles. "You're awfully calm for someone caught with cocaine." "I'm calm," she says, Because I know exactly what's happening. That gives him pause. The sergeant closes in, lowering his voice. You think you're smarter than us? I think, she says, that you're exceeding the scope of any lawful search. The captain's jaw tightens. You some kind of activist? No, she answers. I'm someone who reads case law. She names them, quietly. Miranda, Terry, Mapp. The sergeant's confidence falters just a notch. Badge numbers, she says suddenly. What? The detective snaps. Your badge numbers, all three of you. The room stiffens. You don't get to make demands, the sergeant growls. Every citizen has the right to identify officers conducting a search, she replies, unshaken. And your body cameras are on, correct? The sergeant's hand moves instinctively to his chest. The red light blinks. Recording. Good. The detective leans closer, breath sharp. You keep talking like this, you're going to make things worse. She meets his stare. Worse than an illegal search and planted evidence? That word lands heavy. Planted. The captain steps in fast. Let's not escalate, but it's already too late. The detective reaches for his cuffs. Turn around, he orders. As cold metal closes around her wrists, she speaks clearly, deliberately, toward the cameras. I do not consent to this search. I am being detained based on fabricated evidence. Shut up, the detective hisses. I'm invoking my right to counsel, she continues. And I'm requesting a supervisor review this arrest. The captain freezes. Something isn't lining up. As they lead her through the destroyed living room, the woman walks steadily, cataloging every rough grip, every shove, every violation, like entries in a ledger. Because this arrest, it's not ending where they think it is. And as they push her toward the patrol car, one question begins to haunt them. How does a woman arrested at 2 a.m. know police procedure better than most officers? The night air hits her face as they shove her into the back of the cruiser. Cold, damp, silent. The door slams shut. Inside the cage, she sits upright, wrists cuffed behind her, eyes calm in the reflection of the darkened window. The detective climbs into the driver's seat. The sergeant rides shotgun. The captain follows in a second car. Standard formation. Nothing about this is standard. You ever been arrested before? The detective asks, adjusting the mirror. No, she answers. Funny, the sergeant mutters. You sure act like someone who's been through the system. She doesn't respond. The radio crackles with routine calls, traffic stops, disturbances, ordinary police business continuing like nothing extraordinary is happening. But something is wrong. The sergeant glances back again. So what do you do for work? Silence. Cat got your tongue? She finally speaks. Which answer keeps you calm? The detective stiffens. What's that supposed to mean? It means, she says softly, you should think very carefully about what you do next. They pull into the station's rear intake bay. Fluorescent lights hum overhead. Security cameras track every movement. As they guide her inside, the cuffs bite into her wrists. The detective grips her arm harder than necessary. Respect, he mutters. You'll learn it. She doesn't resist. She records. At booking, the desk sergeant looks up. What we got? Possession, the detective says quickly, resisting. I did not resist arrest, she states calmly. The desk sergeant pauses. That true? Don't encourage her, the detective snaps. Processing begins. Fingerprints, photos, property inventory. Then the desk sergeant opens her wallet. He stops. There's federal identification in here. The room stills. The detective leans over. What kind of federal? The desk sergeant types her name into the system. The computer hesitates. Then flashes an alert. His face drains of color. Detective, he says quietly, you need to see this. The screen displays a classification code few local officers ever encounter. Active federal law enforcement. Current assignment. Internal affairs. The detective stares. No, he whispers. From the holding bench, the woman finally looks up, and for the first time since they kicked in her door, she smiles. Because in that instant, the officers realize the truth. They didn't arrest a suspect. They arrested the woman investigating them. The booking desk goes quiet in a way police stations never do. The desk sergeant leans back slightly, eyes flicking between the screen and the woman sitting in cuffs. He clears his throat. "Detective, this says she's active federal." The detective steps closer, lowering his voice. "That's a mistake." "It's not," the sergeant replies. "The system doesn't flag like this unless—" "Run it again," the captain snaps, appearing behind them. The desk sergeant does. Same result. Louder this time. Red warning banner across the monitor. "Federal law enforcement. Special handling required." The captain exhales slowly, forcing composure. "Let's keep this contained." The woman finally speaks. "I've requested counsel and a supervisor. You're in no position to make demands," the detective snaps. Too fast, too sharp. The desk sergeant frowns. "Actually, sir, if she's federal, we have to notify—" "Not yet," the captain cuts in. "We'll verify internally." That's when the woman tilts her head. "You should also preserve all body camera footage." The sergeant's eyes dart to the detective. "Why?" the detective challenges. "Because deleting federal evidence," she says calmly, "comes with its own charges." The captain steps closer to her now, voice low. "You're saying the drugs were planted?" "I'm saying," she replies, "that your officer placed them in my purse on camera." Silence. The desk sergeant swallows. "Sir, I need guidance." "Process her," the captain orders. "We'll sort it out." They escort her to a holding cell. The door clangs shut. Concrete walls, metal bench, flickering light. Alone, but not powerless. Down the hall, raised voices erupt. "This is bad," the sergeant whispers. "She knew too much," the detective snaps back. "Then why didn't we stop?" The captain rubs his temples. "We move fast. County transfer, now." Inside the cell, the woman closes her eyes briefly. She knows what they're trying to do. Bury her in paperwork. Move her out of reach. Delay long enough for things to disappear, what they don't know. Her emergency beacon activated the moment she was booked. And someone very important just received that signal. Because while they scramble to cover their tracks, a federal alert is already racing toward the station, and it's not coming quietly. Officer Sarah Johnson sits alone in the equipment room, staring at a paused frame on her body cam monitor. She rewinds, plays it again, the door splintering inward, the woman in bed, hands raised, calm voice asking for a warrant. Johnson slows the footage. There, right there. The detective's hand slides into the purse. His movement is too smooth, too practiced. The bag appears seconds later. Johnson's stomach knots. She's heard the rumors, whispers in locker rooms, jokes that weren't really jokes. But this is proof. Johnson types the woman's name into the system. Her fingers freeze. FBI, Public Corruption Unit. "Oh no," she whispers. Her radio crackles. "Johnson, status on the footage?" She doesn't answer right away. Then her phone vibrates. Delete bodycam. Equipment malfunction. Detective Morrison Johnson's chest tightens. Delete the footage, or save her career by doing the right thing. She looks back at the screen, at the woman's steady voice. At the moment, history shifted. Johnson opens a secure terminal, uploads the file. Not to local storage. To a federal evidence server she barely knows exists, but was trained to use once, just in case. Her phone rings immediately. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," a voice says. "Do you have Agent Marshall?" Johnson swallows. "Yes, she's in custody." Silence, then, "Do not let her be transferred." "We're trying," Johnson whispers. "We're already en route." Johnson hangs up just as Captain Wilson steps into the room. "You wiped the footage?" he asks. "Yes, sir," she lies. He nods. "Good. This stays internal." Johnson watches him leave, then looks back at the screen, now marked uploaded, verified. She exhales, because tonight someone finally chose the truth, and the station has no idea what's about to arrive at its doors, because the moment that footage hit federal servers, this stopped being a local arrest and became a federal reckoning. Diana Marshall sits alone in interview room 3. Grey walls. Metal table bolted to the floor. A single camera humming softly in the corner. She flexes her fingers, feeling circulation return where the cuffs had been too tight. The door opens. Detective Morrison steps in, a thick folder tucked under his arm like armor. He drops it onto the table. "Let's talk about your drug operation." Diana doesn't blink. "You planted narcotics in my home," she says evenly. "That will be addressed." Morrison scoffs, flipping pages. "We've got reports, surveillance, witnesses." "Name one." He pauses, just long enough to notice. "Anonymous sources." "Anonymous sources don't survive federal court," Diana replies. "Neither do fabricated reports." Morrison leans back, jaw tightening. "You keep saying federal like it scares me." "It should." His fist hits the table. "You think flashing a jacket on your wall makes you untouchable?" Diana leans forward slightly. "I think your body camera footage speaks for itself." The door cracks open. The sergeant whispers urgently in Morrison's ear. Morrison's face drains of color. "What do you mean her status is flagged?" he snaps. Diana watches quietly as panic flickers across his features. He waves the sergeant away and turns back to her. "You work for the government," he says slowly. "That doesn't make you innocent." "No," Diana agrees, "but it makes your mistakes expensive." He glares. "You threatening me?" "I'm informing you." Morrison stands abruptly. "We'll see how confident you are after county processing." He storms out. The room goes silent again. Diana exhales through her nose. Her beacon is still active, still transmitting. They don't know it yet, but time is no longer on their side. Because every minute they delay, federal eyes are getting closer, and they're running out of places to hide. Assistant Director James Rodriguez doesn't sleep through federal alerts. His secure phone lights up on the nightstand. One glance at the sender, and he's already sitting up. "Rodriguez." "Sir," the voice says tightly. "Agent Marshall's emergency beacon activated." Rodriguez's jaw clenches. "Where?" "Metro Police Station." Silence, then movement. Rodriguez is out of bed, pulling on clothes. "Status?" "Local arrest, drug charges, evidence appears compromised." Rodriguez closes his eyes for half a second. "They arrested her." "Yes, sir. Activate rapid response, now." Within minutes, screens light up at headquarters. Teams mobilize, warrants pulled, jurisdiction flags raised. Operation Cleanhouse, 2 years of quiet surveillance, just exploded into daylight. Rodriguez briefs his team inside the command vehicle. They didn't just arrest an agent. They documented their own crimes. Outside the station, unmarked vehicles begin to arrive. Communications specialists tap into local channels. Inside, panic brews. Captain Wilson paces his office. "Why hasn't county transport moved?" "Federal hold," the desk sergeant mutters. Wilson slams his hand on the desk. "From who?" Before anyone can answer, radios crackle across the station. All units stand by. The doors rattle. Outside, black SUVs line the curb. Inside interview room 3, Diana hears the shift, the sudden tension, the hurried footsteps, the silence that only comes before something irreversible. She allows herself one slow breath. Because the investigation she's built for 15 years is about to walk through the front door. And when federal authority arrives, the rules change. And no badge inside that building is going to protect them anymore. The front doors of the station swing open with purpose, not force. Black windbreakers, gold letters, FBI. The chatter inside the station dies instantly. Assistant Director Rodriguez steps forward, calm and controlled, authority rolling off him like gravity. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," he announces. "This facility is now under federal jurisdiction." No one moves. Hands hover near belts. A few officers exchange nervous glances. Others freeze where they stand. Captain Wilson emerges from his office, forcing a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "Director Rodriguez, this is highly irregular." Rodriguez doesn't slow. "What's irregular is arresting a federal agent during an active corruption investigation." The room stiffens. "Where is Agent Marshall?" Rodriguez asks. Wilson hesitates, just a beat too long. Rodriguez nods to his team. Interview room 3. Agents fan out with precision. Evidence techs move towards servers. Legal teams start serving warrants, one after another. Inside the interview room, Diana hears the door open. Rodriguez steps in. "Marshal," he says simply. She stands. 15 years of work sit between them in that moment. "You okay?" he asks. "Now I am." Outside, the detective tries to protest. "You can't do this." Rodriguez turns. "Detective Morrison, you're under arrest for evidence tampering, false imprisonment, and conspiracy to violate civil rights." The cuffs click. Across the room, the sergeant backs away slowly. "Agent Marshall," Rodriguez says, raising her badge high for everyone to see, "is the lead investigator on Operation Cleanhouse." The name lands like a thunderclap. Whispers ripple through the station. Cleanhouse, the rumor they joked about, the investigation they thought was a myth. Diana steps forward. "Every action tonight was recorded. Your own cameras provided the evidence." No one speaks, because now they understand. This arrest wasn't a mistake, it was the end. And as the cuffs go on, the officers realize the woman they tried to silence just became the voice that will end their careers. Evidence boxes stack up fast, computers seized, body cameras logged, phones bagged and tagged. The station transforms from workplace to crime scene. Rodriguez addresses the room. "This investigation spans 15 years. Gasps ripple. Diana opens a file, thick, worn, meticulously organized. 17 confirmed evidence plantings, she says, reading. 43 illegal searches, 26 constitutional violations. She looks directly at Morrison. "Those are yours." His knees buckle. The sergeant slumps against the wall as his name is read next. Captain Wilson closes his eyes when his turn comes. "Conspiracy to operate a criminal enterprise under color of law." Federal agents move in. One by one, badges are removed. Uniforms mean nothing now. Diana activates her phone and plays the audio from the raid. Morrison's voice fills the room. "Look what we have here." Then Diana's, "I watched you plant it." Silence follows. Rodriguez nods. This concludes Operation Cleanhouse's evidence collection phase. The words echo. 15 years. Tonight was never about drugs. It was about proof. Diana steps back as agents escort the accused away. Her job, finally, complete. Or so it seems. Because justice doesn't end with arrests, it ends in court, and that reckoning is just beginning. 6 months later, the courtroom feels heavier than any police station ever did. Wood-paneled walls, flags standing still. 12 jurors seated, faces serious, tired, aware they're holding something historic in their hands. Diana Marshall sits at the prosecution table, posture calm, eyes forward. Across the room, former officers sit in plain suits. No badges, no authority. Just defendants. The judge clears his throat. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor," the foreman replies. The courtroom holds its breath. "On the charge of conspiracy to violate civil rights under color of law, guilty." The word lands hard. Morrison stares straight ahead, jaw trembling. "On the charge of evidence tampering, guilty." Another. "On the charge of false imprisonment, guilty." Each verdict peels away the lie they lived behind. When Diana takes the stand, her testimony is precise, unemotional, devastating. Dates, times, footage, patterns. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to, because the evidence speaks louder than anger ever could. One by one, sentences are read. 12 years, 15, 20. The courtroom murmurs, not with shock but with relief. For the first time in years, accountability has a face. But justice in a courtroom is only half the story. The real impact begins outside those walls. Outside the courthouse, cameras flash. Reporters crowd the steps, voices overlapping. "Agent Marshall, how long did this investigation take?" 15 years, she answers. "What kept you going?" Diana pauses. Truth doesn't disappear. It waits. The quote travels fast. Headlines follow, reforms begin, new oversight, new protocols. Body camera rules tightened, training rewritten. Officer Sarah Johnson watches from the edge of the crowd. She testified. told the truth, paid a price, but kept her integrity. Diana finds her after. "You did the right thing," Diana says. Johnson nods. "You gave me the chance." "No," Diana replies. "You took it." Later, Diana sits alone in her car, courthouse fading in the mirror. Her phone rings. "Ready for another case?" Rodriguez asks. Diana exhales softly. "What is it?" "Another system. Different city. Same patterns." She looks ahead. "I'm in. Because corruption doesn't end, and neither does the work. And just when you think the story is over, another door waits to be opened. The verdicts don't end the story, they start the aftermath." Across the city, the ripple spreads quietly at first. Court documents circulate. Names once spoken with authority now appear in federal records, followed by words like convicted and sentenced. Officers who once walked confidently through neighborhoods now move through prison corridors, stripped of rank, stripped of power. And the people they hurt finally begin to speak. Men who took plea deals for drugs they never sold. Women who lost jobs because of arrests that should never have happened. Families fractured by records that followed them for years. They come forward slowly, hesitant at first, then in waves. Diana reads every statement, every affidavit, every apology request forwarded through attorneys who suddenly want closure. She doesn't take pleasure in it. Justice isn't revenge, it's correction. Federal review boards descend on the department. Training protocols are rewritten, oversight committees installed. Independent audits mandated. The station that once operated behind silence now answers to transparency. Officer Sarah Johnson transfers to a joint federal task force. Her badge changes, but her resolve doesn't. She learns what real policing looks like when accountability isn't optional. One evening, Diana stands outside her apartment, the same door that once lay splintered on the floor. The frame has been replaced, fresh wood, stronger hinges. She runs her fingers along it, not in fear, but remembrance. That night could have gone differently. If she had panicked, if she hadn't documented, if one officer hadn't chosen conscience over comfort. People often ask her how she stayed patient for 15 years. The truth is simple. Corruption depends on silence, and silence always breaks. Diana locks the door and turns out the light, knowing the case will be taught in training academies, cited in courtrooms, referenced quietly when officers hesitate before crossing a line. That hesitation matters. Because somewhere, another door will stand unbroken tonight. But even after justice is served, the question remains, what happens to the person who spends 15 years living inside the truth? The next case file waits on Diana's desk when she arrives at headquarters. Different city, different uniforms, same pattern. She flips through it slowly, recognizing familiar shapes. Complaints dismissed, evidence inconsistencies. Officers protected by procedure instead of principle. Rodriguez watches her from the doorway. "You don't have to take this one." Diana looks up. "You wouldn't have offered if it wasn't necessary," he nods. They both know this work isn't about endings. It's about endurance. Outside, the world moves on. Headlines fade. New stories replace old ones. But inside court records and policy manuals, something permanent has changed. A standard has been set. Diana's case becomes a reference point, a reminder that power can be audited and authority can be questioned. She walks past a group of new agents in training. They straighten instinctively, recognizing her face. One of them asks quietly, "How do you know when to step in?" Diana pauses. "When silence becomes routine," she answers. "That's when you listen hardest." She steps into her office, closes the door, and opens the new file. 15 years ago, she started with a notebook and suspicion. Now she starts with precedent, because truth doesn't need shortcuts. It needs time. And someone willing to wait. And just when you think the story is finished, remember, there's always another door, another night, another choice waiting to be made. Diana Marshall stands alone on the steps of the federal building as the morning sun rises. Traffic hums in the distance. People walk past her without knowing her name, her sacrifice, or the years she spent living quietly inside danger. That's how she prefers it. Justice doesn't need applause, it needs witnesses. She checks her phone one last time. Messages from victims, quiet thank yous, Simple words that carry more weight than any headline ever could. You gave me my life back. My record was cleared. My son can apply for work again. Diana exhales slowly. This was never about revenge, never about proving she was right. It was about restoring balance, one truth at a time. Inside the building behind her, files are being archived, evidence sealed, cases closed. Names that once carried fear now carry consequences. And somewhere else, in another city, another officer is making a choice tonight, to follow the law or bend it. That's the truth about justice. It doesn't end corruption forever. It simply reminds it that it can be caught. Diana turns and walks down the steps, blending back into the world she protects, but never dominates. Because the most dangerous people in any system aren't criminals. They're the ones who believe no one is watching. And now, they know better. Because the next knock on a door might not belong to the innocent, but to the ones who thought they were untouchable. If this story made you pause, if it made you think, if it reminded you how powerful truth can be, subscribe now, because these stories aren't fiction. They're reflections of choices made every day. And don't miss the next story on your screen. Cop forces a black woman to kneel on the road, then realize she could end his career because the moment power meets identity, everything can change.